Again, for Nietzsche, the issue is living life now. Here was the final argument I made. And I think that made sense to them, and I'll skip all the other heated argument that they have in the trunks of the confusion, so we don't have to have another heated argument. And that is that this is the life that matters. Now, even when I said that, I got arguments from one of them. Like, no, God knew us before we were born. I'm like, well, whatever that means, right? Supposedly, this life determines whether we go to heaven or hell, is it not? And if it's this life that determines whether we go to heaven or hell, this life is what matters, not the next life. Because, well, the next life is completely determined based on this life.
Punishment or reward.
No, see, that's a problem way of dealing with it. If you turn it into a punishment-reward thing, instead of living life well versus or fully, and then making excuses for not living life well, that's Nietzsche's problem. Is Christians use heaven as an excuse not to live life well, or run away from things that they're afraid of, or to not take chances and really love someone. So you pull yourself back instead of living life to the fullest. I mean, it's not that all Christians do this, right? The idea is that maybe 80% do this and use heaven as an excuse to be an uncareful Christian, or something like that. You see what he's driving at here? The whole point is living life. That's the heart of the matter. Yes, no? Let's not get distracted in our concepts, in our philosophies, in our religions by stuff that's superimposed on life. Let's keep life as the center of it all. And so in the fourth proposition, he says, to divide the world into a true and an apparent world, whether in the style of Christianity or in the style of Kant, a sneaky Christian to the end, is merely a sign of decadence, a symptom of declining life. Why? See, now he's dealing with the critique. He's not criticizing Christianity, perhaps, as much as he is criticizing modern science in the fourth proposition. And yet Christianity does something similar with heaven. Heaven's good. This life is influenced by the devil. But what about the true and the apparent world? The true world is heaven. All of this is just a mirage. Right? Christianity is not the only religion that would do that. Right? Buddhism, all the Eastern religions, it's all an illusion. Your desires are an illusion. Oh, you're suffering, it's just an illusion. Again, you got to figure out what they mean when they say that. It's not perfectly apparent or clear what they mean.
That's why the Christians always appear to be so happy, because they believe that whatever's happening is not real.
That's one possibility. See, the point would be maybe in the majority of cases it's out of decadence instead of out of strength. See, what Nietzsche says in another place is rather interesting. In this book, it's The Gay Science, which I use in other classes, where I can choose my books. He says, for assuming that one is a person, one necessarily also has the philosophy of that person. Right? We all assume that we're people. He's going to not accept that assumption. He's going to question it in the long run. What does it mean to be a person, in other words? But if you are a pessimist, you inevitably have the philosophy of a pessimist. And so when you pessimistically begin another relationship with the opposite sex, and then it doesn't work out, well, no wonder. You're a pessimist. Of course it didn't work out. And vice versa, if you're an optimist, and then...
that far.
Huh?
If you even manage to get that far.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're an optimist, right, and things work out well, and you're an optimist, of course things worked out well. Because you're a person where things are going to work out well.
Only in a kakapo on a deserted island. Kakapo is a type of extremely rare parrot. There's only like 5 of them.
I was so close to thinking of a dog. I was like, what's the dog doing on a deserted island? But a parrot makes more sense. Thank you for clarifying for me. So I heard cockapoo instead of cockapoo.
Poe.
Anyway. But here there is a considerable difference. In some, it is their weaknesses that philosophize, in others, their riches and strengths. The former need their philosophy, be it as a prop, a sedative, medicine, redemption, elevation, or self-alienation. For the latter, it is only a beautiful luxury. In the best case, the voluptuousness of a triumphant gratitude that eventually has to inscribe itself in cosmic capital letters on the heaven of concepts. In the former, more common case, however, when it is distress that philosophizes, as in all sick thinkers, and perhaps sick thinkers are the majority in the history of humanity, in the history of philosophy is what the text says. What will become of the thought that is itself subjected to the pressure of illness? So, you're starting to catch on to Nietzsche's, personality, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? Because he grabs things and he looks at them, like I said, from many different perspectives. Right? And it can be both annoying and beautiful. Like picking a rose, right? In this in this book, he's got poems at the beginning. And one of the poems is number 9, My Roses. Yes, my joy, it wants to gladden. Every joy wants so to gladden. Would you pluck my rose and sadden? You must crouch on narrow ledges, prop yourself on ropes and wedges, prick yourself on pony hedges. For my joy, it loves to madden. For my joy is malice laden. Would you pluck my rose and sadden? And of course, why would you pluck a rose and then become sad? Because it has thorns and the thorns might win. Right? That is, you hurt yourself and you're bleeding all over the place.
Oh gosh.
Or are you going to be satisfied with the rose even though it came with thorns? Are you going to love life even though it has suffering? Are you going to say yes to the suffering? That's the tragedians, right? The last sentence is, tragic artists are not pessimists. In fact, they say yes to everything questionable and terrible itself. They are Dionysian. Did I tell you about my father? Right? My dad was mentally ill my whole life. But if I wished my father away, or he didn't get sick, who would I be? By wishing away his sickness and my sadness over his sickness, do I not also thus wish myself away? Is there any guarantee that I would be myself if it didn't happen? You see what I'm saying? So you've got to affirm the negative and the terrible and the suffering as well as the good. Because if you negate either one, you got nothing. And of course, not that that's easy. Or you can do it in Machiavelli style and just say the bad is good. Which to me makes no sense whatsoever in the world. That's like the argument where everything in the universe is good, even suffering. Huh? What do you think? Well, I think that's probably as far as I can take you, so there's really no point.